Imagine discovering that some of Hollywood's biggest action stars weren't only pretending to be tough, they truly lived it. These men didn't simply perform as heroes in front of a camera. They carried that grit into their real lives, facing danger and hardship head-on. And when you reach number 4, you may be stunned they ever ended up in show business. Here are the 10 hardest actors Hollywood has ever seen. First up, a decorated veteran who looked more like a student than a soldier, Lee Marvin. Marvin fought bravely in the Pacific during World War II and was badly injured in the Battle of Saipan. He earned a Purple Heart, yet rarely mentioned his service. But when he played ruthless characters in films like The Dirty Dozen, audiences believed him because he'd experienced the reality of violence. He wasn't just portraying soldiers, he was channeling his past. Then came Charles Bronson. Long before fame, Bronson worked as a coal miner. As one of 15 children, he grew up in extreme poverty. By age 10, he was laboring underground. Later, he manned a bomber gun during World War II and was wounded in battle. That calm, unshakable toughness couldn't be staged. As one colleague remarked, Bronson didn't act rough, he embodied it. Next is Audie Murphy. Standing only 5'5" and looking like a kid, Murphy became the most decorated American soldier of World War II. At just 19, he fought off an entire German company while wounded and nearly out of ammunition. By 21, he'd earned 28 medals, including the Medal of Honor. He later portrayed himself in To Hell and Back. At first, filmmakers doubted him because he looked too gentle. But the truth was, Murphy needed no acting. He was the story. Now for Steve McQueen, the unexpected entry. McQueen wasn't simply the king of cool, he lived on the edge. He performed nearly all his stunts and competed in professional racing. Once, he drove competitively with a broken foot in a cast. And after learning Charles Manson's cult had targeted him, he armed himself instead of relying on guards. McQueen's defiance was part of who he was. Kirk Douglas came next. Determined to rise from poverty, Douglas fought his way forward with sheer drive. Before Hollywood, he was a wrestler and later served in the Navy until health issues forced him out. In his 70s, he survived a helicopter crash, endured difficult recovery, and still returned to acting, showing toughness wasn't just about physical power, but resilience of spirit. John Wayne followed. Famous for westerns, Wayne's toughness wasn't just a screen illusion. Even after losing a lung and ribs to cancer, he continued performing most of his stunts. During one shoot, a horse threw him, breaking ribs, yet he finished the scene. That was Wayne's kind of endurance. James Cagney brought a different kind of grit. Quick and fierce, Cagney had been a trained boxer and street fighter. He carried that raw energy onto the screen. In The Public Enemy, when he shoved a grapefruit into his co-star's face, it wasn't staged. His on-screen fights looked brutal because they came from reality. As he once said, you either learn to fight or stay down, and he refused to stay down. Robert Mitchum lived hard from the start. During the Depression, he wandered homeless and later worked on a chain gang. Afterwards, he even served jail time for marijuana possession. Yet his cool never cracked. Mitchum often joked that one expression carried him for 40 years, and audiences kept buying it. His toughness wasn't performed, it was who he was. Anthony Quinn entered with scars of his own. Before fame, he worked as a laborer, butcher, boxer, and construction hand. Fistfights left him with a broken nose, and he continued doing stunts into his 60s. But he was more than brawn. A co-star once said Quinn carried the strength of a fighter with the heart of a poet. And finally, Charlton Heston. He served as an aerial gunner in World War II and later embraced risky stunts himself. For Ben-Hur, he trained like an athlete. For The Agony and the Ecstasy, He painted ceilings for hours to capture Michelangelo's spirit. He also stood firm for his beliefs, even in controversy. Heston embodied both physical courage and moral conviction. These men weren't just hardened by Hollywood roles. They carried real scars, real courage, and real grit. Veterans, fighters, survivors, and rebels. They didn't need the screen to make them strong. They brought that strength to the screen.